Part 1. The Debt Painting. Clara Valente dashed across the cobbled street of Seaview, her old sandals clattering as if they might fall apart at any moment. One strap had come loose, slapping against the sole of her foot with every step, while her canvas bag full of art supplies swung wildly against her hip, a long paintbrush sticking out like a broken antenna. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, buried somewhere among watercolor tubes, sketch paper, and a broken pencil from last week. Clara glanced down at her bag, trying to fish it out, only to send a tube of red paint rolling onto the street, leaving a long streak like an artistic bloodstain on the cobblestones. "Consider it a donation to the town," she muttered, not bothering to pick it up. Her phone finally surfaced, screen glowing with a message from her best friend Sophie. "Clara, what has your dad done this time?" "The whole of Seaview is buzzing," Clara tried to reply, her fingers flying over the screen, but she only managed to type "running, save me," before nearly crashing into a lamppost. She swerved just in time, her hair whipping around like she'd escaped a tornado, muttering to herself, "Survive first, explain later." The Seaview sea breeze carried the salty tang of the ocean and the distant sound of waves crashing, but Clara had no time to enjoy it. Her father's pottery shop, a tiny wooden house with faded roof tiles and a crooked sign reading Valente's Pottery, came into view. Clara sighed in relief, slowing down and resting her hands on her hips like an athlete who had just shattered a marathon record. But her relief was short-lived. Valente, her father, stood at the door, grinning like he'd just won the lottery, holding a bottle of cheap wine he had undoubtedly picked up from the discount store down the street. "Clara, my dear, I have great news," he announced, his enthusiasm instantly setting off alarm bells in her head. Valente's great news usually came with trouble, like the time he bought a rooster to enrich their lives, only for it to knock over half the ceramics in the workshop, or when he invested in an automatic ice cream maker that turned out to be just a broken blender. "What good news, Dad?" Clara asked warily, gripping her paintbrush like a weapon. She stepped inside, leaving muddy footprints on the old wooden floor. Valente clapped his hands, sloshing the wine in his bottle. "You won't believe it. I just took care of the biggest debt of my life." Clara raised an eyebrow, setting her canvas bag on the table, naturally knocking over yet another pencil. "Debt? You mean that groundbreaking pottery kiln that's now rusting in the yard like a pile of scrap metal?" She pointed out the window, where the kiln, something Valente had once sworn would make them millionaires, stood pitifully, now a perch for seagulls. Exactly. Valente nodded, completely unbothered. "I owe Justin Blackwood $15,000 for that kiln, but don't worry, I found a way to erase the debt." Clara exhaled for the second time, this time with a hint of hope. "Really? You finally sold that ugly fish-shaped vase no one's wanted for 3 years?" No, Valente laughed, splashing some wine. "I gave you to Justin as his wife. Now the debt is gone, our home is safe, and you have a rich husband." "What?" Clara screamed so loudly that the shelves behind her trembled. A box of paint toppled onto the floor, its lid popping open, green paint splattering across her already pitiful sandals. "I am not a ceramic vase for you to trade." Valente shrugged, looking utterly pleased with himself. "But Justin's a good man. You'll like him. And I don't want to lose our house. He agreed to clear the debt the moment I suggested it. He's even coming over today to meet you." Clara gaped at her father, her mind spinning as if she'd been thrown into the ocean without knowing how to swim. She, a 23-year-old who had never held hands with anyone, never been on a date, never felt her heart race for a man, was about to be forced into marriage because her father didn't understand that losing at gambling meant you should stop? Her grip on the paintbrush tightened, hands shaking, as if she could paint a giant exclamation mark on Valente's face to express her disbelief. "You're serious? Justin Blackwood? The rich photographer who lives in that beachfront cabin?" "That's right." Valente nodded, clearly thrilled with his master plan. "Handsome, talented, and wealthy. You should be thanking me for finding you such a good husband." Clara's jaw dropped. Justin Blackwood, to her, was a mystery. She had secretly admired his photography in magazines, stunning shots of Seaview's coastline, sunsets that melted into the waves. But she had never met him, let alone thought about marrying him, and now here she was, standing in the middle of an art supply disaster, clutching her paintbrush like it was the last weapon protecting her freedom. "I refuse," she declared, voice firm despite her heart pounding with panic. "I'd rather sell paintings on the beach for the rest of my life than let you push me into this ridiculous marriage." Valente took another sip of wine and shrugged again. "But it's already done, sweetheart. Justin's coming this afternoon for the wedding. It's simple. Just on the beach. Nothing fancy. You just need to wear a nice dress and smile." Clara let out another scream, this time hoarser from all the yelling. "A wedding? This afternoon? Are you insane?" She turned to bolt for the door, but her sandal betrayed her. The last weak strap snapped, sending her crashing face first onto a pile of sketch paper. Valente burst into laughter, while Clara lay there, wondering if this was the universe's way of telling her that her life was about to spiral into absolute chaos. "He's really nice," Valente assured her, stepping over the mess to help her up. "I met him last week. He even said, 'I don't want you to lose your home. Let me take care of it.' Funny, polite, and good with a camera. You'll see." Clara sat up, hair covered in dust, her paintbrush now streaking green across her cheek. "If he's that nice, why didn't he refuse this insane idea?" she snapped. "Who agrees to marry a total stranger just to erase a debt?" Valente chuckled, patting her shoulder. "Maybe he's curious about you. Who knows? Now go change. You look like you just survived an explosion in an art studio." Clara stared at her father, then at the chaos surrounding her, her mind blank. Who was Justin Blackwood? An arrogant, rich guy playing power games? Or just another victim of Valente's boundless foolishness? She had no idea. But when the distant chime of the front door rang, maybe Sophie coming to save her, or worse, Justin himself coming to claim his bride, Clara only wanted to scream again. Her life, already a messy painting, was about to have a bold new stroke she was completely unprepared for. Welcome to Soul Stories. Life can be overwhelming, but here we share heartfelt tales to bring you peace, joy, and inspiration. Your support, every comment, like, and follow means the world to us. It motivates us to create more meaningful and uplifting stories just for you. Did our latest story touch your heart? Leave a "I am happy" in the comments if you agree. Subscribe now and be part of a community that spreads love, kindness, and positivity. Let's make every day a little brighter together. Part 2. The Beachfront Wedding. Clara Valente stood barefoot on Seaview Beach, her toes sinking into the warm sand, while the salty wind whipped her messy brown hair around as if trying to turn her into a living kite. The wedding was happening the very next afternoon. Valente, her father, refused to delay the deal even a second, afraid that Justin Blackwood might change his mind and demand his $15,000 back. Clara wore an old white cotton dress she had dug out from her mother's vintage wardrobe, a once prized possession from the 80s, now a little too tight at the shoulders and sporting a few faded stains she prayed no one would notice. "Do I look like a bride or someone who just survived a storm?" she muttered, tugging at the hem to cover her sand-dusted legs. Valente had chosen the beach as the venue because, in his words, it's free and romantic. A small wooden table had been hastily set up as the altar, covered with a tattered tablecloth he borrowed from the cafe down the street. On it sat a bouquet of wildflowers Clara had picked last minute, mostly weeds with a few tiny daisies mixed in, and a bottle of cheap wine that Valente insisted was premium quality, though the label was peeling off. The townspeople of Seaview, who never missed a chance for free entertainment, had gathered in a disorderly crowd, sipping beer and munching on potato chips, whispering among themselves as if awaiting the premiere of a comedy show. Clara scanned the crowd, her heart pounding. "I'm not ready to marry anyone," she thought, clutching a paintbrush, not for painting, but as the only thing grounding her sanity. Her best friend Sophie stood nearby, struggling to suppress laughter as she whispered, "You look like you're about to flee a historical drama. Don't worry, I'll be your bridesmaid and your bodyguard if needed." Clara shot her a glare, but had no time to respond because the sound of an approaching car rumbled in the distance. Justin Blackwood arrived, stepping out of a sleek silver Jeep that looked more expensive than her entire house combined. He wore a simple white linen shirt, sleeves rolled up, his dark hair tousled slightly by the ocean breeze. But what made Clara's jaw drop was the massive camera hanging around his neck, as if he had come to photograph the wedding rather than be the groom. When their eyes met, Justin's face flushed slightly. He approached her, looking awkward. Uh, sorry about this, he muttered, scratching his head. I didn't think your dad was serious when he made the offer. I just wanted to help. Clara raised an eyebrow, giving him a once-over. He was taller than she expected, his warm brown eyes filled with uncertainty, like he couldn't believe he was here either. Help? She echoed. Help my dad, or help me become an accidental bride? Justin let out a sheepish grin, revealing a set of perfect white teeth. Both, I guess. I'm not great at saying no to people. Before Clara could respond, Valente shouted from across the sand, Let's get started, you two. The wind's picking up. I don't want to fall over. From the very first second, the ceremony was a hilarious mess. Valente had appointed himself as the officiant, standing atop a wooden crate to appear more dignified, though he was already tipsy from the wine. Raising his hands, he slurred, We're gathered here today to witness the union of, Clara Valente and Justin, Black something. The crowd erupted in laughter, while Clara buried her face in her hands, mumbling, Dad doesn't even remember the groom's name. Fantastic. Justin raised a hand, attempting to correct him. It's Blackwood, sir. But Valente waved him off and continued, Clara, do you agree to share debts with this man? Clara's eyes widened. Debts? You mean more debts? She turned to Justin, half joking. You don't have any debts, do you? I'm not signing up for extra contracts here. Justin chuckled, shaking his head. No, I swear I don't. As the ring exchange began, things only got more chaotic. Justin pulled a small silver ring from his pocket, clearly a rush purchase from a nearby souvenir shop, but his hands were trembling, and the ring slipped straight into the sand. Oh no, he groaned, immediately dropping to his knees, sifting through the sand like a child digging for buried treasure. Clara sighed and knelt down to help, her white dress soaking in seawater as a small wave rolled in. Is this a wedding or a lost and found competition? She muttered, but then burst into laughter at the sight of Justin's sand-covered face. The villagers clapped and cheered, with an old man shouting, Hurry up, groom, or the bride might run away. Finally, Clara fished the ring out from the sand and held it up like a victorious trophy. Here it is. Hurry up and put it on before I change my mind. Justin, blushing, awkwardly grabbed her hand and slid the ring onto her finger, except in his haste, he put it on the wrong one. Does this still count? He asked sheepishly. Clara burst into laughter, feeling lighter than she had all day. As long as you're not chasing me for debt payments, I'll allow it. With the ring, wrongly placed but still on, Valente raised his wine bottle and declared, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Now kiss. Clara and Justin snapped their heads toward him, eyes wide in shock. Kiss? Clara stammered. That wasn't in the script, Dad. Justin nodded rapidly. Yeah, I wasn't prepared for... But the villagers were already chanting, kiss, 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 like fans at a soccer match. Justin glanced at Clara and whispered, We don't actually have to, right? Clara nodded quickly, but before they could protest further, Valente gave Justin a firm shove. Off balance, Justin stumbled forward, nearly colliding with Clara, their lips just a fraction of an inch apart. Clara gasped and jumped backward, knocking over the wildflower bouquet onto the sand. The villagers howled with laughter, and Sophie shouted, That was so close! Try again! Clara's face turned scarlet as she shot a glare at her father. Are you trying to embarrass me to death? Valente shrugged. Just adding some spice to the big day. The wedding ended in a mix of applause and crashing waves, with no one seeming to care that it barely resembled a real ceremony. As people began to disperse, Justin stepped closer to Clara, fiddling with his camera strap. You okay? He asked sincerely. Clara looked at him, realizing for the first time that he wasn't as intimidating as she had imagined. I'm fine, as long as you're not expecting me to pay off my dad's debt, she teased. Justin chuckled, a warm, slightly goofy laugh, and said, I promise I won't bother you, unless you want me to. Clara was caught off guard by his awkward charm, but found herself smiling anyway. After the ceremony, Valente clapped Justin on the back and said, Take your bride home, son. Don't make me worry. Justin nodded, then turned to Clara. Would you, like to come to my place? Just for now, to put your dad at ease. Clara raised an eyebrow. Your place? You mean that fancy beachfront cabin? Justin nodded, his face reddening even more. It's not that fancy, but it has big windows overlooking the ocean. You can pick any room. I'll take the couch. Clara studied him, wondering how someone like him, wealthy, talented, and clearly not lacking options, had agreed to such a ridiculous marriage deal. Fine, she said with a shrug, but if you annoy me, I'll paint your whole house with watercolors. Justin laughed. I'll take that as a serious threat. As they walked toward his Jeep, Justin opened the door for her, only to knock over the cup of water he had been holding all afternoon, drenching his crisp white shirt. Oh, come on, he groaned, trying to wipe it off, only making it worse. Clara burst into laughter as she climbed into the car. You're just as clumsy as I am, Blackwood. Justin scratched the back of his head, looking embarrassed. Maybe that's why we make sense? The car rumbled down the road toward his cabin, leaving Seaview Beach behind with the sound of waves and the laughter of villagers. Clara gazed out the window, absent-mindedly twisting the misplaced ring on her finger, wondering where this accidental marriage would lead her. But when she glanced at Justin, who was mumbling an apology to his spilled cup, she realized maybe he wasn't so scary after all. And maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be so bad. Part 3. The First Days of Living Together. Clara Valente dragged her tiny suitcase into Justin Blackwood's wooden cabin, her temporarily taped-up sandals clattering against the polished wooden floor. The house was more beautiful than she had imagined. White-painted wooden walls, large windows overlooking the vast blue sea, and the faint scent of pine wood blending with the salty ocean breeze. But she didn't have much time to admire it. The moment she set down her suitcase, an old battered one that had belonged to her mother, it popped open, spilling its chaotic contents onto the floor. Watercolor sets, paintbrushes, sketch papers, and an old pair of leggings she had stuffed in last minute to fill the empty space. Oh, come on, she groaned, kneeling down to pick everything up, only making the mess worse. One of her brushes rolled straight to Justin's feet, where he stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, holding a glass of water as if unsure of his next move. Sorry, I didn't mean to turn your house into an art studio, Clara muttered, her face turning red as she scrambled to gather the ink-stained papers. Justin let out an awkward chuckle and stepped forward to help. It's okay, I'm not great at keeping things neat either. But as he bent down, his glass tilted, spilling water all over Clara's sketches. Oh no, I'm so sorry, he panicked, hastily using his sleeve to wipe them, only making the smudges worse. Clara looked at him, then at the disaster between them before bursting into laughter. We're a total disaster of a couple, you know that? Their life in the cabin started with a series of small catastrophes like that. The next morning, Clara woke up in the small guest room Justin had given her, a cozy space with a white-covered bed and a window facing the ocean. When she walked into the kitchen, she found a cup of coffee on the table with a hastily scribbled note. Don't burn the house down. Justin, Clara smirked. Does he think I'm a fire hazard? Determined to prove herself, she decided to make breakfast for them both. Unfortunately, she wasn't familiar with Justin's modern gas stove, far more advanced than the old wood-burning stove at her home, and ended up burning 2 slices of toast into charcoal. Smoke filled the kitchen, and within seconds the fire alarm shrieked. Justin rushed out of his office, camera in hand, as if ready to document the crime scene. What happened? He asked, eyes wide. Clara stood in the middle of the kitchen, holding a pan of blackened toast, grinning sheepishly. I tried. She placed the 2 burnt slices on the table and slid a note beside them. I tried. Clara. Justin stared at the meal before bursting into laughter, tears forming in the corners of his eyes. Thanks. I'll keep it as a souvenir. The next day, Clara accidentally left her watercolor set on the dining table, right next to Justin's printed photographs for a project. By the time he returned from the beach, the photos were stained with streaks of red and blue, as if a child had used them as a coloring book. Clara stood there, hands tangled in her hair, waiting for him to explode. But Justin simply picked up one of the ruined pictures, tilting his head as if analyzing it. This kind of looks like abstract art, he said, completely serious. You've got talent, Clara. Her eyes widened. You're not mad, Justin shrugged. I once dropped my entire camera into the ocean. This is nothing. Wanting to make it up to him, Clara decided to paint a portrait of Justin. She sat on the sofa, sketching, while he sat across from her, holding a coffee cup like a model. But because she was inexperienced with drawing real people and a bit distracted, the final product ended up looking less like Justin and more like a cat wearing a wig. Blushing, she handed it to him. Don't laugh. I tried my best. Justin took one look at the painting and immediately doubled over with laughter, nearly spilling his coffee again. This is me? I'm even more handsome than I thought. Still grinning, he walked straight to the kitchen and taped the drawing to the wall. The first official artwork in this house, he announced proudly. Clara covered her face, but for some reason, she felt oddly happy. They grew closer through these ridiculous moments. One afternoon, Justin offered to teach Clara how to use a camera. Taking her out to the balcony, he showed her how to adjust the lens. Just hold it steady like this, he said, standing behind her, guiding her hands. But Clara, nervous and a little clumsy, fumbled and dropped the lens straight onto the wooden floor with a loud clunk. Oh no, I'm so sorry, she gasped, kneeling down to retrieve it, her face as red as a tomato. Justin only laughed. No worries, I have 3 spares. Then with a teasing smile, he added, honestly, you might be my biggest challenge yet. Then it was Clara's turn to teach him how to paint. She placed a jar of red paint in front of Justin and said, just a few brush strokes and you've got a painting. Justin nodded eagerly, grabbing the brush, but he pressed too hard, splattering paint all over his white shirt. Did I do it right? He asked, his face streaked with red, looking like he had just survived a paint battle. Clara clutched her stomach, laughing. You did. If the goal was to turn yourself into the artwork? Justin pretended to be serious. So, I'm your masterpiece? Clara wiped tears from her eyes, still laughing. A disastrous masterpiece. With each passing day, they grew used to each other's clumsiness. Every morning, Justin left coffee and a note, evolving from don't burn the house down to you okay, or try not to spill anything today. Clara replied with burnt toast or rock-hard cookies, always accompanied by a note. Eat this, I made it for you. Justin never complained. In fact, he even kept a burnt food collection in the kitchen, proudly displaying the evidence of Clara's cooking attempts, though no guests had ever come to see it. One evening, they sat on the balcony, watching the sunset. The ocean breeze was cool and Justin held his camera, snapping a few shots of the waves. Clara sat beside him, absent-mindedly doodling on a scrap of paper. Do you like the ocean? Justin asked softly. Clara looked up, surprised by the sudden question. I do, she admitted, but I've never gone swimming. I'm terrified of the water. Justin chuckled. Well, I've never taken a photo without almost dropping my camera. Once I nearly shattered my lens because a seagull flew by at the wrong moment. Clara laughed. As she shifted, her hand accidentally brushed the railing, right where Justin's hand was resting. For a brief second, their fingers touched. Both of them froze, then quickly pulled away. Clara's face burned, her heart beat erratic, while Justin coughed awkwardly and turned away, pretending nothing had happened. The sunset is really beautiful, he mumbled, voice a little shaky. Yeah, beautiful, Clara murmured back. But she wasn't looking at the sunset, she was sneaking a glance at him. Slowly, through all these ridiculous moments, Clara realized Justin wasn't just some rich guy like she had assumed. One afternoon, while unpacking some things Justin had brought from the city, she found an old photo album. Flipping through it, she saw pictures of his family, childhood photos of him standing on the beach, and one of him with his mother who had passed away years ago. You used to live in a big city, she said, closing the album gently. Why did you move back here? Justin paused, looking out toward the sea. I got tired of that life, he admitted. It's more peaceful here, even if it gets a little lonely. Clara nodded, unexpectedly touched by his honesty. So why did you agree to marry me? She asked after a moment. I mean, my dad's ridiculous deal. Justin let out a sheepish laugh, rubbing the back of his neck, a nervous habit Clara had noticed. I don't know. Your dad came to me, looking so desperate, saying he'd lose his house if I didn't help. I figured marrying someone temporarily wouldn't be the worst thing, as long as she didn't hate me. Temporarily? Clara raised an eyebrow, pretending to be offended. So I'm just a temporary solution to you? Justin panicked. No, no, that's not what I meant. He looked so flustered that he fumbled the photo album, dropping it onto the floor. Clara burst out laughing and picked it up for him. You're such a mess, Blackwood. Good thing I am too, or I would have run away by now. That night, as Clara lay in bed, staring at the moonlight filtering through the window, she thought about Justin. He wasn't the arrogant, rich guy or manipulative businessman she had imagined. He was a talented photographer, wealthy yet lonely, who had left behind city life in search of peace, now awkwardly trying to be her husband, an accidental bride. She smiled to herself, gripping the paintbrush she kept under her pillow, wondering if the next days in this wooden house would continue to be a series of hilarious disasters, or if, somehow, they would turn into something more. Part 4. Love Quietly Blossoms. Clara Valente stood in the middle of the Seaview Weekend Market, hugging a stack of seascape sketches, while the wind whipped her hair into a tangled mess. The market, held every weekend near the harbor, was a lively place where villagers sold everything from grilled fish sandwiches to handmade jewelry. Clara had decided to sell her paintings, not to pay off Valente's debt, though she wished she could, but to prove that she was more than just the accidental bride everyone saw her as. But now, standing among the bustling crowd, she felt self-conscious. Who would buy art from someone who once set a kitchen on fire? She muttered, smoothing down the frayed hem of her old cotton dress. Right then, Justin Blackwood appeared, camera in hand and that familiar goofy smile on his face. Need a marketing manager? He teased, holding up his camera. I'll take photos of your work and post them online. They'll sell in no time. Clara raised an eyebrow. You actually know how to use social media? I thought you only photographed the ocean and seagulls. Justin scratched his head, cheeks flushing. I picked up a few tricks in the city. Besides, your paintings are really good. From that day on, they became an unexpectedly great team. Justin captured each of Clara's paintings, sunsets, waves, small fishing boats, and posted them on his personal page, where he still had a decent following from his days as a professional photographer. Clara stood beside him, directing, You're holding the camera wrong. The red in the sunset isn't visible from that angle. Justin shot back, You got my face completely wrong in my portrait, and I didn't complain. But every time they bickered like that, they ended up laughing, drawing amused stares from the villagers. This couple is weird, someone whispered. They argue like it's more fun than karaoke night. Clara's painting started selling, not a fortune, but enough for her to finally buy a new pair of sandals to replace her broken ones. Justin beamed with pride, as if he had painted them himself. Clara teased, You're just good at taking pictures. Don't get cocky. Justin laughed. I'm your official image consultant. I deserve some credit. Their playful partnership pulled them closer, though neither of them realized it yet. One afternoon, a sudden downpour swept over Seaview. Clara, determined to capture the beauty of stormy waves, ran to the beach with her sketchbook. She loved the chaotic beauty of it, the way the sky turned a deep gray, the ocean roaring beneath it. But she had forgotten her raincoat, wearing only a thin hoodie. Within minutes, she was soaked, her hair clinging to her face, her hands trembling as she tried to sketch. Justin came running from the cabin, holding a giant black umbrella, his linen shirt plastered to his body from the rain. Clara, he shouted over the storm, rushing to shield her. I don't want my wife catching a cold, he muttered, then immediately froze when he realized what he had just said. Clara looked up, raindrops sliding off her eyelashes, and stared at him. Wife? She echoed, half teasing. Justin panicked, nearly dropping the umbrella. I meant, on paper. But he didn't take back the words. Instead, he just stood there, drenched, still holding the umbrella over her, despite the wind nearly blowing it away. Clara's heart pounded, not from the cold, but from the warmth in his gaze amidst the gray storm. Thanks, she said softly, then grinned. But you're soaked too. Who's going to keep you dry? Justin shrugged. I'm used to it. Taking photos in the rain is kind of my specialty. They ran back to the cabin, the umbrella practically useless in the wind. Inside, Clara was shivering, and Justin quickly handed her a towel. "Warm up, I'll make coffee," he said. But in his usual clumsiness, he knocked over the coffee tin, spilling beans all over the floor. Clara wrapped the towel around her and laughed. "You're a disaster, Blackwood." Justin grinned. "So are you, Valente." But when their eyes met, they fell silent for a long moment, something unspoken lingering between them. The next day, as a thank you, Clara painted something special, a sunset over Seaview Beach. Except this time, she added two small silhouettes standing side by side. She left the painting on the kitchen table with a note, "For you, thanks for the umbrella. Clara." When Justin found it, he stood frozen, staring at the artwork, his fingers gripping the edges as if it might disappear. A slow, goofy smile spread across his face. "You made me look better than real life," he joked when Clara walked in, but his eyes shone with something deeper. Clara blushed. "Don't flatter yourself. I just added you for fun." But she knew that wasn't true. She had painted him because she wanted to keep that moment. The villagers of Seaview began calling them the Accidental Couple, a nickname that spread faster than rumors about a shark sighting near the shore. Every time they walked through the market, the fish vendor would wink. "Married for debt, but looking very in love." The cafe owner would call out, "Justin, don't forget to take more pictures of your wife. Her paintings are selling like crazy." Clara wanted to sink into the sand. Justin just laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm trying my best," he called back. One cold winter night, when the air was chillier than usual, Justin lit the fireplace in the wooden cabin. Clara sat beside him, cupping a mug of hot cocoa he had made for her, though not before spilling half the cocoa powder all over the table. They sat in silence, watching the flames crackle, the warmth from the fire spreading through the small room. Then unexpectedly, Justin reached out and took Clara's hand, gentle but firm. "To keep warm," he murmured, voice slightly unsteady, eyes fixed on the fire instead of her. Clara froze, her heart pounding faster than the time she almost burned the kitchen down. She didn't pull away. She let her cold fingers rest in his, feeling warmth not just from the fire, but from his hesitant yet steady grasp. "Have you ever thought about loving someone?" Justin asked, barely above a whisper, still not daring to look at her. Clara swallowed, her eyes reflecting the flickering light. "Never," she admitted, then added softly, "but maybe now." Justin turned to her then, their eyes meeting, and for a moment, the world seemed to still. "I never thought about it either," he said, smiling awkwardly, "until you smudged paint all over my photos." Clara burst out laughing, shattering the tension. "So it's my fault?" Justin nodded, still holding her hand. "Your fault, but I'm not complaining." They stayed like that, hands intertwined, saying nothing more. But between them, something quiet and unspoken had begun to grow, something that needed no words. The next day, Clara went to the market alone since Justin was busy editing his photos. When she returned, she found him sitting at the kitchen table, staring dreamily at the sunset painting she had made. "I like this one," he said, pointing at the two small silhouettes. "Looks just like us." Clara blushed, quickly pretending to be busy unpacking. "Don't get any ideas, I just added them for fun." But Justin stood up, stepping closer, his voice unusually serious. "What if it wasn't just for fun?" he asked. "I mean, what if we weren't just something on paper?" Clara stood frozen, her heartbeat hammering in her chest. She looked at him, his slightly clumsy stance, his goofy smile, the sincere warmth in his gaze, and wondered when he had started to become so endearing to her. "I don't know," she whispered, but the soft smile on her lips said more than words ever could. Justin nodded, not pushing for an answer, just turning back to the table and murmuring, "Then I'll wait." From then on, they kept bickering about photography angles, painting techniques, or who had spilled the coffee this time. But after every playful argument, their smiles lingered a little longer, their gazes softened a little more. The villagers of Seaview whispered, "The Accidental Couple is turning into the real thing." And as Clara lay in bed each night, staring at the moonlight streaming through the window, she started to believe that love wasn't what she had imagined from books. It was quiet, messy, unexpected. and somehow more beautiful than she ever thought possible. Part 5. The Threat of Falling Apart. Clara Valente sat in the wooden cabin, gripping her paintbrush tightly, her eyes fixed on her latest painting, a view of Seaview Beach at sunset, with two small silhouettes standing side by side beneath the fiery sky. A rare winter breeze slipped through the large windows, carrying a sharp chill, making the curtains sway gently. Yet the room remained warm, thanks to the crackling fireplace and the faint scent of coffee drifting from the kitchen, a signature of Justin Blackwood. Clara smiled, her fingers tracing the brushstrokes. A strange, unfamiliar happiness filled her chest. The day spent with Justin, his constant coffee spills, their playful arguments over painting angles, the quiet moments by the fire, had woven themselves into her heart. But deep down she carried a quiet fear, that this happiness was fragile, that it could be swept away as easily as one of her sketches carried off by the wind. That late afternoon, as the sun touched the horizon, turning the ocean into molten gold, there was a loud, hurried knock at the door. Clara expected Sophie, her best friend often visited with a bag of grilled fish sandwiches and an endless string of gossip. But when she opened the door, it was Valente. Her father stood there, grinning too widely, his eyes betraying nervousness. In his hand was a half-empty bottle of cheap wine, a few drops dripping onto the cobbled path leading into the house. "Clara, my dear, I need to speak to Justin." "Right now," he announced, his voice slightly slurred. Clara narrowed her eyes, gripping her paintbrush instinctively, as if she needed a weapon. "What did you do this time, Dad?" she asked warily. "Please don't tell me you bought another revolutionary kiln." Valente waved a dismissive hand, stepping inside without waiting for permission, spilling more wine onto the polished wooden floor, leaving a trail of crimson like a guilty stain. "No, no, no more kilns," he declared. "I'm here to fix my mistake." Clara's stomach tightened. "Fix?" she echoed. Her heart pounded, an uneasy tide rising within her. "What are you talking about?" Valente didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned to Justin, who had just stepped out of his office, camera in hand, looking as lost as a deer in unfamiliar woods. "Mr. Valente," Justin greeted cautiously, sensing the tension in the room. "Is something wrong?" Valente cleared his throat dramatically and placed the wine bottle onto the table, of course, spilling even more onto the white tablecloth. Then, pointing straight at Justin, he declared, "I want to cancel this deal. Clara is my daughter. She deserves her freedom, not to be tied to you because of some stupid ceramic kiln. She's not your property, Justin Blackwood." The paintbrush slipped from Clara's fingers, hitting the floor with a soft clack, leaving a tiny smear of blue on the white rug, like a small wound in the peaceful space of their home. "Cancel?" Clara's voice trembled with anger and confusion. She spun toward her father. "You're the one who forced me into this, and now you suddenly want out? What do you even want, Dad?" But Valente wasn't backing down. He raised his hands theatrically, his voice filled with the kind of exaggerated drama only terrible actors could pull off. "Yes, I made a mistake by trading you away, but now I see you're too happy here, while the family pottery shop is falling apart." His eyes flashed with something desperate. "I need you back, Clara. You can't stay trapped in this stupid contract forever." Justin stood frozen, gripping his camera so tightly that his knuckles turned white, his face drained of color, as if all life had been sucked out of him. Inside him, a storm raged. Uncertainty, fear, and a deep, aching pain he had tried so hard to suppress. He looked at Valente, and for a brief second, there was a flicker of agreement in his gaze. Then he turned to Clara, his warm brown eyes now darkened with a sorrow she had never seen before. "He's right," Justin murmured, his voice quiet and hollow, like every word was being pulled from a wound in his chest. "I never wanted to keep you like some kind of possession. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. You choose, Clara. I don't want to be your burden." Clara's breath caught. Her mind spun, like she'd been thrown into the sea without knowing how to swim. Justin's words sliced into her, an invisible blade straight to the heart. "Choose?" she whispered, stepping toward him, her hand trembling midair, wanting to reach for him, but stopping just before she could. Inside her, a whirlwind of emotions clashed. Anger at Valente, fear of losing Justin, the realization that, somehow, he had become her safe harbor in all this chaos. But before she could speak, Valente clapped his hands, laughing loudly like he had just won a game of cards. "Good boy," he declared, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "That settles it then. Clara, come on home now. Our pottery shop needs you." He turned, staggering toward the door, muttering something about restoring the family's honor, as if, in his drunken mind, everything had already been neatly resolved. Clara stood there, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt as if the ground beneath her had cracked open. Like all the happiness she had found with Justin was just a fleeting dream about to slip through her fingers. "You really think I want to leave?" she asked, her voice shaking. Her fists clenched at the hem of her shirt as if holding herself together. Anger that he doubted her, heartbreak that he didn't understand, fear that she was about to lose him. Justin didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned and walked into the bedroom. Clara followed, and her breath hitched when she saw him reach for his suitcase, a small black one she had never seen him use since coming to Seaview. "I won't force you," he said, his voice so quiet it almost drowned under the crackling fireplace. His hands moved stiffly as he folded his white linen shirts, each crease a reflection of his disordered thoughts. Inside Justin, pain spread like ink spilled on white paper, staining every rational thought, feeding his fear that he was only temporary in Clara's life, that she was here out of obligation, not choice. "That pottery shop is your home. If that's where you'd be happier, I'll leave Seaview." His voice was almost a whisper now. "You don't need me." He stared at the floor, unable to meet her eyes, as if too afraid to see the confirmation of his worst fear. A strange kind of anger surged through Clara, a desperate, terrified anger. "You idiot!" she yelled, storming forward. She snatched the shirt from his hands and threw it onto the bed with all her frustration. How could he think she wanted to leave him? After everything? But Justin didn't stop packing. His hands shook, betraying the emotions he was trying to hold back. "I don't want you to stay just because you feel bad for me," he murmured, voice cracking under the weight of his own pain. "I want you to be free." Clara's vision blurred with tears as she shouted back, "Free? You think I stayed here because I had to?" She wiped angrily at her face, tears spilling over anyway. "You think I put up with your coffee spills, your ruined paintings, your terrible drawing of me, just because of some contract my dad made?" Her voice broke. "I stayed because I need you, Justin." But he only shook his head, his jaw tightening as he zipped up his suitcase. Then before she could stop him, he stepped out the door. Night fell. A storm rolled in, not just a light drizzle, but a real storm. Wind howling through the cracks in the wooden cabin, rain hammering against the windows like it was trying to drown the world. Clara sat in the kitchen, gripping her paintbrush so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her mind felt just as chaotic as the mess of spilled watercolors on the table. Justin was gone, and the only thing he left behind was a small, crumpled note on the counter. "I'm going out for a while. Thanks for everything. Justin." Clara read it over and over, each word a dagger to her chest. Then a horrifying realization struck her. He wasn't just going out. He was leaving. Leaving her. Leaving Seaview. Leaving them. Panic surged through her like a tidal wave, crashing into her ribs, squeezing the air from her lungs. Clara shot to her feet so fast that the chair toppled over with a loud bang. "No!" she choked out, breathless. She would not let him go. She didn't even stop to grab a coat or an umbrella. Didn't even notice that her sandals, barely held together by tape, were slipping off her feet. Rain pounded against her as she ran, soaking through her thin cotton dress, the cold biting into her skin. But she didn't care. Her only thought was find him, before it was too late. She sprinted toward the beach, the place Justin always went when he needed to clear his head. The storm raged around her, wind tearing at her hair, rain blinding her feet slipping on the slick stones of the shoreline. Then through the thick curtain of rain, she spotted him. Justin stood there, shoulders hunched, gripping his small suitcase, his white shirt now drenched and clinging to him. He looked like someone who had already given up, like someone who was about to walk away for good. "Justin Blackwood!" Clara's voice tore through the storm, rising above the crashing waves and howling wind, carrying all the pain and love she had been holding inside. "You idiot! Stop right there!" Justin turned, his eyes wide with shock, his suitcase landing with a dull thud on the wet sand. For a moment, his heart stopped. He couldn't believe she was here, couldn't dare hope that she had come for him. Clara ran toward him, her feet slipping on the rain-soaked sand, nearly falling, but she didn't stop. She screamed louder, her voice raw with desperation. "I don't want freedom if it means losing you. Do you hear me, you idiot?" Justin took a step forward, instinctively reaching out just as she crashed into him. Rain streamed down his face, blurring the lenses of the glasses he had chosen instead of his usual camera. "Clara?" he whispered, his voice unsteady, his heart breaking open with both relief and fear. "Are you serious?" She nodded, her tears mixing with the rain, her gaze burning with a love she no longer wanted to hide. "I am serious." Her voice wavered, but not with uncertainty, with certainty. "You really think I stayed here? Put up with your coffee spills, your ruined photos, your terrible sketch of me? Just because of my father?" Her fingers curled around the wet fabric of his shirt. "I stayed because of you, Justin. Because I love you." Justin stared at her, his rain-soaked eyes reflecting the storm inside him. And in that moment, every fear he had, the fear of being temporary, of being unloved, of being just a mistake, vanished. Without thinking, without hesitation, he pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly that they both tumbled onto the wet sand. His heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst. "I love you," he breathed, the words trembling but certain, his warmth cutting through the cold rain like fire. Clara lay beneath him, her hair tangled with sand, laughing through her tears. "I love you too, you clumsy fool." They locked eyes for a heartbeat. And then Justin kissed her, a desperate, rain-soaked, slightly awkward kiss. His lips chilled from the storm, but impossibly warm against hers, pouring out everything he had kept inside. Clara clung to him, her hands fisting in his shirt, not caring about the ripped hem of her dress, the sand in her hair, or the rain soaking them both to the bone. The storm raged on, but to them it was just the backdrop to the moment they had finally found each other. From a distance, Valente stood under a small awning, watching the scene unfold. He had been halfway home before realizing he had forgotten his wine bottle. Now he squinted through the heavy rain, muttering, "Well, damn, those two idiots really are perfect for each other." With a shrug, he took one last swig of wine and turned back toward home. They could figure the rest out on their own. As the rain softened into a light drizzle, Justin helped Clara to her feet. They stood there soaked, shivering, and covered in sand. Two absolute messes. "I thought you wanted freedom," Justin murmured, brushing wet strands of hair from her face, his voice still tinged with disbelief. Clara rolled her eyes, pretending to be annoyed, though her gaze was warm. "Freedom to do what? Live with my dad in his collapsing pottery shop?" She huffed. "I'd rather stay here, with you, even if you spill coffee on my sketches or take the worst pictures of me." Justin laughed, his chest light for the first time in days. Pulling her close, he rested his forehead against hers, the rain still dripping from his hair onto her shoulder. "I didn't want to leave either," he admitted softly. "I was just scared you didn't need me." Clara pushed him away, just slightly, just enough to put her hands on her hips. "Didn't need you?" She scoffed. "Who else is going to take photos of my paintings? Or make me cocoa while spilling half of it? Or hold an umbrella over me in the rain?" She raised an eyebrow. "You really think I could survive in that house without you?" Justin scratched the back of his head, smiling like a complete fool. "I mean, I am pretty bad at all of those things." Clara sighed dramatically, grabbing his hand. "Well, I love how bad you are at them, Justin Blackwood. I love you." Hand in hand, they walked back to the wooden cabin, leaving Justin's abandoned suitcase in the sand. He could pick it up later, because he wasn't going anywhere. Inside, Clara shivered from the cold, while Justin fumbled to light the fireplace, managing to knock over 3 logs before finally getting the fire going. "You never change, do you?" she teased, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders, her wet hair dripping onto the floor. Justin grinned, his heart full in a way it had never been before. "Nope," he admitted, "but I'll try. For you." His voice was quiet but certain, carrying a promise deeper than words. That night they sat by the fire, fingers intertwined, no longer accidental partners, no longer just two people trapped in a ridiculous deal. Clara rested her head against Justin's shoulder and whispered, "Don't ever leave like that again, okay?" Her voice was soft but firm, a vow in itself. Justin pressed a kiss to her hair, his hold tightening around her. "Never," he promised. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving only the steady rhythm of the ocean waves. A perfect soundtrack for two of the clumsiest people in Seaview who had somehow stumbled into something real. Back at his pottery shop, Valenti slumped into his old chair, taking the final sip of his wine. "Well, guess she's staying with him," he muttered, smirking to himself. Probably for the best. After all, he had no idea how to fix a kiln anyway. He had no idea that, in letting her go, he had given Clara something far more valuable. A love neither of them had expected, but one that was meant to be. Part 6. Happiness by the Sea. 1 year after that fateful stormy night on Seaview Beach, where Clara Valente had stopped Justin Blackwood with a trembling confession, soaked in rain and desperation, their lives had entered a bright new chapter. From the chaotic days of being the accidental couple, they had built a small but meaningful world together. On an early morning, as golden sunlight spilled over the deep blue ocean, they stood in front of a small gallery in the heart of Seaview, a cozy wooden space that Justin had bought and renovated, using a fraction of his vast fortune. Its sign read, "Blackwood and Valente, Photography and Paintings." Justin, once a famous city photographer, owned more than just their beautiful beachfront cabin. He had a luxury yacht docked at the Seaview Harbor, a collection of rare cameras worth a fortune, and investments he never bothered to mention. Yet he chose a quiet life here, where he had found peace, where he had found Clara. Inside their gallery, Clara's stunning seascape paintings, crashing waves, serene sunsets, quiet fishing boats, hung beside Justin's breathtaking photographs of Seaview's wild beauty, captured through lenses worth thousands of dollars. The villagers flocked in, murmuring, "Who would have thought the rich photographer and the clumsy artist would make it work?" The most unforgettable moment came when a retired billionaire, passing through Seaview on his multi-million-dollar yacht, stepped into the gallery. He stopped in front of one particular painting, a sunset piece Clara had painted to thank Justin for the umbrella in the rain. Two small silhouettes stood beneath the fiery sky. The man turned to Clara and asked, "How much?" Clara, flustered, stammered, $50? Justin, with the confidence of a man used to million-dollar deals, interjected, "Are you kidding? It's worth much more than that." The billionaire chuckled, pulled out his credit card and said, $10,000, it's a masterpiece. Clara nearly dropped her paintbrush. Justin beamed. "I told you, you're talented." Though the money was insignificant compared to Justin's wealth, he used it for small things that mattered. Fixing the cabin's leaky roof from that stormy night, upgrading the coffee machine, since their old one had suffered too many coffee spills, and buying Clara a premium watercolor set from Italy, something she had always dreamed of but never dared to purchase. To Justin, the gallery wasn't just about art. It was a symbol of the love that had transformed his once lonely, wealthy life into something full of color. To mark a year of happiness, Justin proposed a second wedding, this time not because of debt or Valente's reckless deal, but because he truly, deeply loved Clara. The wedding took place on Seaview Beach, the same place where they had first been married in a messy, hilarious, contract-bound ceremony. With his wealth, Justin could have planned an extravagant city wedding, but he chose this place because this was where he had found his heart. Clara wore a flowing white dress, delicate lace draping over her shoulders. A custom design from a famous couturier, specially commissioned by Justin. Justin, in his usual white linen shirt, paired it with a perfectly tailored bespoke vest from Italy. The villagers arrived in full force, bringing foldable chairs, cold beers, and an old speaker system to blast music, turning the wedding into a joyful beach festival. Justin had hired a small band from the nearest city, but instead of grand wedding songs, he asked them to play soft, simple tunes that blended into the sound of the waves. Sophie, Clara's maid of honor, handed her a bouquet of fresh daisies and smirked. This time, Justin, you better kiss her properly. Of course, the wedding wouldn't be complete without its signature chaos. Valente, despite promising to stay sober, arrived with yet another bottle of premium wine. As the officiant, he raised his arms dramatically and slurred, "Today, we witness the union of Clara Valente and Justin. Black, black something." The villagers erupted in laughter. Clara groaned, covering her face. "Dad still doesn't remember your last name?" Justin chuckled, whispering, "I'm used to it. Don't worry." Then came the ring exchange. A moment of unexpected luxury. Justin presented an exquisite engagement ring. A dazzling pear-cut diamond, sparkling under the sunlight, crafted by a Parisian jeweler. It was worth more than their entire cabin combined. But as he tried to place it on Clara's finger, his hands trembled, and the ring slipped straight into the sand. "Oh no!" he gasped, immediately dropping to his knees, digging through the sand in panic. His face turned bright red. Even though he was the wealthiest man at the wedding, he was still the clumsiest. Clara sighed and knelt beside him, only for her long dress to catch under her own foot, nearly sending her toppling into him. The villagers clapped and cheered. "Find it quickly! The bride won't wait forever!" Sophie yelled, "Watch out, Clara! You're getting sand in your dress!" Finally, Clara pulled the ring from the sand, triumphantly holding it up. "Found it! Now hurry up and put it on before you lose it again." Justin, still flustered, carefully slid the diamond onto her ring finger. The gemstone gleamed like a tiny star against her hand. "I promise I won't drop it a third time," he joked. His voice was warm, full of love. Clara smirked. "You literally dropped a diamond ring. No one can beat that." Valente raised his wine bottle and declared, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Officially this time. Now kiss." The villagers erupted into cheers. "Kiss! Kiss!" Clara and Justin turned to each other, their eyes shining with love. "Again?" Clara teased, but her smile was soft. Justin placed a hand on her waist, pulling her closer, and they kissed. A deep, sweet kiss, amidst roaring applause and the gentle rhythm of the waves. From the crowd, Sophie shouted, "You two are too perfect together!" The cake cutting was pure chaos. Justin had ordered a grand 3-tiered cake from a renowned bakery, covered in delicate white frosting and tiny daisies. But as they held the knife together, the top tier collapsed. Perhaps the frosting was too soft, or maybe Justin's hands were just too shaky, smearing frosting all over their faces. "Oh my God!" Clara gasped, laughing as the creamy mess dripped from her hair. Justin wiped frosting off her cheek and grinned. "You still look as beautiful as my diamond." The villagers doubled over with laughter, while Valente, now fully drunk, slurred his way through an off-key rendition of "Happy Birthday" instead of a wedding song. But no one cared. It was their wedding, messy, chaotic, and overflowing with joy. After the wedding, life carried on in their upgraded wooden cabin. The roof no longer leaked. The kitchen now boasted a proper coffee machine, since Justin had killed the old one with too many spills. And Clara had a private gallery space for her growing collection of paintings. Justin, with all his wealth, could have bought a grand estate anywhere. But he stayed in Seaview because this was where he had found her, his most precious diamond. Not one he could buy, but one that had given him her heart. They still argued over the little things, who spilled the paint, who forgot to turn off the lights. But every disagreement ended the same way, with laughter, with arms wrapped around each other, with a love that only grew stronger, day by day. One winter evening, as the sky burned red with sunset, Clara and Justin sat in front of their home, on 2 elegant wooden chairs Justin had custom made just for them. Their fingers intertwined as they gazed at the endless ocean. The salty breeze played with Clara's brown hair as she leaned into him, warmth radiating from his embrace. On her finger, the diamond ring sparkled in the fading light, a silent promise of the love he had given her. For a long time, they simply sat there, listening to the waves, the cries of seagulls, the steady rhythm of the tide. It was as if the entire world had settled into harmony with their love. Then Clara broke the silence, her voice soft. "Did you ever think we'd end up here? She smiled wistfully. After everything? After my dad literally traded me off over a pottery kiln? Justin turned to her, his deep brown eyes glowing with warmth, a reflection of the fiery sky above, a reflection of the diamond on her hand. He gave her fingers a gentle squeeze. No, he admitted. I thought I'd spend my life rich but alone. Just me, my cameras, and a pile of soulless assets. His smile softened. But then you came along, Clara. You're the greatest diamond I've ever found. Not because of how you look, but because of the light you bring into my life. His voice turned quiet, sincere. You shine in a way that's forever. His words sent a warm wave through Clara's heart. She lifted her gaze to his, feeling the depth of his love in every breath, every glance. To me, you're not just some rich photographer, she whispered, voice trembling with emotion. You're my safe harbor. Through all the chaos, the messy paintings, the spilled coffee, and every stolen kiss in the rain. I never imagined love could be this deep, this beautiful. Justin leaned in and placed a soft kiss on her forehead. The warmth of it spread through her like an unspoken vow. You're my diamond, he murmured, his voice like music against the sound of the waves. I could own the whole world, and still, nothing would be more precious than you. He traced his thumb over her knuckles, his grip firm yet tender. Every moment with you is my greatest treasure. Whether we're laughing, fighting, or falling into the sand again, I'll cherish you always. Clara's eyes sparkled with the last golden rays of sunset. The diamond ring on her hand caught the light, a perfect mirror to the love in Justin's eyes. She smirked playfully, voice laced with affection. Then you'd better be ready. She intertwined their fingers tighter. Because I'll always be the wave in your life, always surprising you, always loving you with everything I have. Justin let out a deep, happy laugh. Pulling her into his arms, he held her close, as if he never wanted to let go. I'm looking forward to every second of it. And so they sat there hand in hand, watching as the sunset melted into the sea, leaving one final streak of golden light on the horizon. The waves rolled in, steady and endless, a symphony of the ocean, blending seamlessly with the rhythm of their hearts. Valente, now slightly less drunk than usual, occasionally visited with cheap wine and stories about his still-broken pottery kiln. One evening, he watched them from a distance, sitting on his rickety old chair. He chuckled to himself. Well, well, the rich kid and my little disaster. Guess they were meant to be. Taking a swig from his bottle, he smiled, leaving them to their own world. Clara and Justin's love story didn't end with wealth or luxury, not with grand mansions or extravagant yachts, but with something far more precious, a simple, true love, built from a spilled cup of coffee, a paint-smudged photograph, a broken umbrella in the rain, and a diamond ring nearly lost in the sand. They weren't perfect, but their love was real, deep, unshakable, and shining as brilliantly as the diamond Justin had vowed to cherish forever, by the shores of Seaview, where their hearts had found home. Thank you for following this heartfelt story of Soul Stories channel. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone. Let's cherish the beautiful moments of life and love together.